Just do what you have to.
Why, Reiner?
To save the world. Keep moving forward.
Has he always been like this? Self-sacrificing type?
Be quiet. Why? Not any of you.
No. In the old days, Reiner was more of a warrior.
Just let me.
Why do broken characters feel more real than perfect ones? Your mind is a delicate balance of everything you are, and everything you believe yourself to be. You can be strong in your lowest moments, selfish with your love, merciful in your cruelty. The mind makes sense of your contradictions until the rift between those selves grows too wide to bridge. Today, we're exploring the fractured mind of Reiner Braun, a warrior broken by his own atrocities, a man haunted by the monster inside him, and a mind incapable of reconciling a soldier with a hero. In this video, we'll break down what happens when an identity splits, covering the trauma that leads to dissociative identity disorder, how repetitive stress contributes to PTSD and major depressive disorder, the structural and biochemical changes in the brain, and finally, how purpose and perspective shape a mind's ability to survive its own reality. Along the way, we will also explore how different aspects of these conditions can serve in creating strong, believable characters in your own writing. So, let's begin at the foundation, the trauma that created Reiner's fractured identity.
I've been here too long for my own good.
We were kids. What did we know about anything?
Dissociative identity disorder is widely viewed as a defense mechanism. When a child or adolescent faces overwhelming stress, abuse, or deep conflict around a core belief, the mind begins to compartmentalize, boxing away memories, emotions, and impulses that feel too painful or contradictory to face. Most people develop milder symptoms of compartmentalization, elevated blood pressure, chronic stress, psoriasis, or heart issues. But when the trauma is extreme, and when it threatens a person's sense of self, the mind may attempt a more drastic solution, a complete split. This split isn't dramatic or cinematic, it's the mind's last-ditch effort to survive pain it has no capacity to process. When writing complex characters, consider how compartmentalization might affect a character, either in the way others see them or how the characters see themselves. Does it create a literal blind spot in your character, a self-sabotaging nature? Or, at the very least, does it increase the conflict experienced between where your hero is in the story and where they are trying to go? Reiner's early life, rejection from his father, conditional love from his mother, being the weakest candidate, created immense psychological pressure, but none of it fully broke him. Reiner always found a reason to keep moving forward. The breaking point came later. When Reiner reached Paradis, he learned he wasn't chosen to be the Armored Titan after all. Just like being born Eldian, this was another flaw he couldn't fix, and moments later, he witnessed the violent death of Marcel, a trauma that not only scarred him, but also split him as the hero he believed himself to be ran away from his friend in need. From that moment on, Reiner the soldier and Reiner the hero became two irreconcilable selves. DID is defined by the presence of multiple selves, each with its own worldview, priorities, and emotional responses. These aren't characters someone plays, they're survival mechanisms, compartments with their own beliefs and memories. This schism often causes gaps in memory, confusion, and emotional detachment as the mind struggles to maintain two realities at once. Reiner's shift into his soldier persona isn't a dramatic choice, it's a maladaptive protection. In the anime, it serves as a narrative way to show his trauma, but in reality, DID is the brain's desperate attempt at survival. But what actually happens to the brain when it splits?
You were just kids who got brainwashed. Hatred was part of your training. As young as you were, how could you have fought that?
Individuals with dissociative disorders often experience chronic cortisol overproduction from the adrenal glands. This constant stress exposure causes major physiological changes. Chronic elevations in cortisol damage the hypothalamus, interfering with normal stress regulation. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is the body's stress response system, and it becomes stuck due to weakened negative feedback loops. And the amygdala, the brain's fight-or-flight center, strengthens its connections to the emotional and sensory centers while weakening its ties to the rational prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex function is then impaired, which reduces emotional regulation, impulse control, and the ability to process fear and anxiety rationally. Over time, stress literally reshapes the brain, altering the bridge between emotion and reason. As a writer, your goal is to emphasize character change. Trauma, rejection, and failure all have the capacity to produce a rewiring of the brain, so consider how drastically this can occur in your character, and how this rewiring raises the emotional stakes of your character's arc. For Reiner, his internal collapse accelerates as he builds genuine bonds with the very people he's supposed to kill. Each new friendship deepens the conflict between his soldier self and his hero self. But eventually, those selves run out of room to hide.
That day, when the Titan got Marcel, Annie and Bertolt wanted to end the mission right then. And they would have. I convinced them to keep going. Not just to save my own skin, but because I wanted to become a hero.
Where DID is a fracture of identity, post-traumatic stress disorder is a fracture of memory and threat perception. PTSD can form from a single traumatic moment, rejection, loss, a life or death situation. In Reiner's case, it was the shattering realization that he wasn't the hero of this story. He was the monster. Both PTSD and DID involve amygdala hyperactivity and hippocampal atrophy, but there's a key difference. With DID, the stress response can diminish when a different self takes over. With PTSD, the stress response never fully shuts off. When writing, your characters often create a plan, and something or someone ruins it halfway through. Characters with PTSD are their own form of timer, struggling with stress or circumstances that put pressure on old memories. For your own stories, consider how this dysregulation of fear and anxiety can cause a character to inadvertently increase the stakes and conflict of their mission by thwarting their own plans. Reiner's mind spent years failing to reconcile who he was supposed to be with who he actually became. Once he returned home and no longer had the mission to distract him, the shame and guilt consumed him. His mind replayed every atrocity, every betrayal, every moment of cowardice. Insomnia, hypervigilance, panic, guilt. His mind would not let go. And that inability to escape the past is what ultimately drove him into major depressive disorder. Major depression is defined by persistent low mood, loss of motivation, and the inability to feel joy. Reiner's scenes with the cadets show both his last remaining sense of purpose and his deepest source of torment. They remind him of who he used to be, and what he can never be again. Falco and Gabi become the only anchors keeping him alive. Biochemically, depression is worsened by chronic cortisol, as well as disruptions in serotonin and dopamine systems. When these neurotransmitters fail to properly signal the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, decision-making, and the nucleus accumbens, responsible for reward systems, life becomes flat, joyless, and empty. Even outside the battlefield, Reiner can't find meaning. Even having returned home a hero, he can't find happiness. How could he when the devils he killed were no different than the family he wanted to protect? Normally when writing characters, proactivity and the desire to change are what draw an audience to them. For characters like Reiner who have lost the belief that they can change, repent, or make a difference, you need to establish a reason for them to carry on despite mounting pressure and futility. Consider that, with a big enough why, a person can overcome any how. Power and isolation are both dangerous. Combine them, and the results are often catastrophic. Reiner's story begins with a boy who wanted to be a hero, someone who could fix his family, save his nation, and make his mother proud. But the more power he received, the more isolated he became. As he grew up, betrayed, failed, and lived with the guilt of what he'd done, his story turned inward. His mission became less about glory and more about survival, emotional, psychological, and literal. And as he lost faith in himself, he discovered a deeper purpose, protecting others, not for approval, but because it gave his life meaning. By the end of his arc, Reiner isn't fighting for honor or redemption, he's fighting for Falco and Gabby, the two people who reminded him that he still had value. His character proves that trauma and a broken mind don't destroy a hero, but rather provide a second chance for a man to choose a meaning greater than himself. Storytelling in many ways comes down to irony, showing how a character's strengths hold them back, how their weaknesses pull them forward, and how the right actions for the wrong reason can break them. But they are also about showing a character learning the difference between great action and great purpose. Give your characters a purpose to discover, so that when they grow into someone stronger, they have something worth fighting for. When I launched this channel, my mission was simple: help writers create their first story. If you want to level up your writing, check out the Story Structure Starter Kit. It's down in the description and is completely free. If you'd like further help outlining your story or polishing your first chapter, email me and we can schedule a session. And I've been thinking about creating a members community for writers, a place to share ideas, get feedback, and grow together. If that's something you'd like to be a part of, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.